pretty much live. We'll get started. Declan, thanks so much for joining me on the show today. Obviously, yeah, we've met at Bali MMA, but I think it'd be cool to, I think in terms of getting started, tell us a little bit more about how you got here, really.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks very much for having me. First and foremost, I didn't know when I met you in an ice bath this was where we'd end up. But yeah, no. So basically, I've been personal training, coaching, been working with sports teams, been working with combat athletes for the last 7 or 8 years. Basically, started off the normal sort of stuff, one-to-one training and classes, group sessions, and I've just kind of stayed in it and just kept evolving throughout. I compete in mixed martial arts myself, and now I've actually went solo and I'm running my own online coaching business, which has obviously been a massive step. And I've really just came over here, man, just as we spoke about yesterday briefly, just elevate everything, because there's so many opportunities to do that here. Meeting yourself even here, I'm here actually 7 days today. So within 7 days, I have this opportunity, and meeting people like yourself who've very similar mindsets, want to go in similar places, and that's the main reason that I've came here. Really level up, really push on to that next level.
Yeah, I wonder if it's, I was discussing this in the other podcast the other day, I wonder if it's a case of being in Bali, is there sort of a source of inspiration here you think that you don't quite get back home? It's Ireland, isn't it?
Yeah, back in Ireland. It's more so, I think, as well. It's like, I briefly spoke to you about this yesterday, where like it's making a commitment to something that you kind of have to. It's like the reason why I charge people, say sometimes up front, they might pay for 6 months up front, but it's the commitment in them knowing, okay, it's 6 months. I have 6 months to do this. It's not, maybe this week, maybe next week. And I think Bali gives you that, where, okay, I'm going to fly the coop, leave the nest, and take a big risk here, bet everything on myself, which is what I've done. It's like, I left a good job, was in a good position, was working with really good people, and I said, no, I really want to push the online coaching, go down this route. And I think just taking that extra bit of risk has already for me, my schedule is the way I wanted it to be in Ireland, but I could never really commit to it in Ireland. There was always a lot of distractions. And I'm not blaming other people. Of course, it's my decisions as well, and I could have always done this, or train twice a day, but it's more so here. You're like, right, I'm after already given so much. It's like, if I go now and just, oh no, I'm not going to bother with the gym today, or oh no, I'll follow up with that person next week, or it's like, then why are you here? What are you doing it for?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Dorian Yates. I remember speaking with him, and he said comfort is the killer of dreams. And exactly what you've just said. I think if you don't, I think back home, it is quite easy to be comfortable. It's quite easy to have a look at life generally and think, okay, yeah, I have these dreams and aspirations, but I've still got a roof over my head. I've got this money coming in. I'm just content. And I feel like you going out there, going to Bali, actually putting a little bit of pressure on yourself and think, right, I've got to finance this somehow. That way you've sort of figured out a way to sort of make your dreams happen in a way, because you've got that work ethic now and you're sort of stuck in that routine. And I was wondering, when you sort of look sort of back home as well, do you think making this step has really forced your hand in that way, or is there a way that people can do that? Because a lot of people might think, okay, I can't really leave back home. I've got a family member I need to look after. I've got, these bills to pay back home, or whatever it may be. Do you think people can also take that step just being at home in that same environment?
Well, this wasn't the first thing that I've took a risk on, So over the years, I've kind of thrown my hand to a lot of things. I've done a fashion brand for a little while. I took a risk there. That's kind of where I learned a lot about digital marketing, e-commerce, service. I worked in multiple different industries, and then I went back competing in martial arts. Well, training martial arts, obviously, to begin with. And then I put the pressure on myself to compete, which you don't need to. You know yourself, you don't need to do that. And it's training martial arts is one thing. Same way training in the gym is one thing. If you're just going to the gym and you're exercising and you feel better going and having that hour to yourself, fantastic. But there is something, and I know sometimes they can be really vain goals. Oh, I want my biceps a little bit bigger, or I want to be this percentage of body fat by X, Y, and Z. But I think that's where the magic happens, and that's something anyone can do. Anyone can decide. Do you know what? Like, I remember when I started training MMA first, I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to try get 3 MMA sessions and 3 gym sessions. That was it. That's all I wanted from it. And I just said, I just wanted, to be honest, I was actually, because I was too lazy to do cardio in the gym, I'd finish up afterwards and be like, I'm after doing loads there. So I was like, this will push me. It's something that I enjoy. It's something social, meet people that are into similar things to myself. And that was really my first step of drive. And it was just, and I see it all the time. Clients come in to me and they're training, they're eating relatively fine, they're not doing anything massively wrong, but they don't have that switch or that goal to really say, yeah, 12 weeks, that's the day, or no, this is the goal, this is what I'm looking for. I want to lose 5 kilos, I want to push to that next level.
Like being specific, do you mean? As in, do you think their goals need to be more specific rather than, right, I just want to lose weight, I just want to look good in the mirror, or whatever
I think it's more so your goal needs to progress.
Right.
I think in the beginning, like, I start in the beginning with people when they come to me for a coaching or anything like that. It's like, okay, let's just get a routine. Where is your routine? If your routine's all over the place, let's just start trying to build a small bit of structure. And then it's, right, now that we have a decent idea of your structure, where would you really like to go with? What's your dream? And be absolutely outrageous with it sometimes. Like, this to me, this is the outrageous dream. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is always what I've wanted. I remember when I was training kickboxing when I was only a teenager, and a couple of lads came back and they were in Thailand at the time, and they were kind of showing videos, and I'd say it was on like a iPhone 4 or something. And I remember then looking and going like, geez, I'd love to go over, I'd love to train, I'd love to commit to that level. And it kind of always stayed with me, and that was always kind of the broader goal, even though I never noticed it. Do you know what I mean? When I was working towards these things. But it was the small steps. It was, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times this week. I'm going to be strict on my food. And it's not to be strict on my food to be restrictive, but it's to be like, I want to get to a goal. I want to know I can accomplish a goal. And I find, for me, everything always relates back to fitness, because that was the first place. It wasn't great in school. It wasn't great academically. And I was kind of like, right, there was nothing really there for me at that stage, where as soon as I started to put my effort into training, and it could be as simple as just, okay, I can now do that. I'm better at that. I was struggling with that a month ago. Now it's like, it's easy, And I think when you can start to progress in something, it leaks into everything, because you realize, I don't need to be in the shit job. I don't need to be in the shit relationship. I don't need to be around these losers. It's like, there is another, you can break away, and it's not easy. It's not saying that it's easy. But the thing is, nowadays there's so much support. Not in the beginning, because you're leaving these situations where you probably don't have the best friend circle, you probably don't have the most support, you probably don't have the most money, you probably are out of shape, you probably do sound crazy, and a lot of the people that are around you, they're not really dreaming, or they've tried and then they stopped for whatever reason. They didn't get the correct guidance. So there can be a lot of negativity in the beginning. That's why, to be honest, with this move, I told very few people. Very, very few people. And it's because, what's the point? When things are hard, and I remember myself and my girlfriend having this conversation when I was training for a fight in December. And I was working long hours, starting up my own thing. And I was then driving an hour to train for 2 or 3 hours to drive back, to get like 5 hours sleep, to go back into work. And no fault of her own, but she was like, oh, I wish I could stay in tonight. I wish I didn't have to train tonight. And it's like, I don't need doubt right now. It's the last thing I need. Believe me, I want to stay in bed and chill and eat what I want and do all, but there's a larger goal.
But that's the thing. You've got that, I think, winning mindset, right? Like you're in the routine. You're going to get shit done no matter what. I wonder how people can cultivate that. Like you said, I think a lot of people end up in that, or perhaps their older social circle. Again, nothing wrong with them, but they're not exactly on the same path, or they don't have similar goals. So I wonder how someone can just out of nowhere sort of get that or build that mentality and sort of find that sort of strength that you did to sort of break out and get stuff done no matter what? I don't know if you've seen a method that works with your clients, for example, or something that sort of pushed you to sort of
It's
go out
small
your comfort
wins.
zone.
I think it's just accumulating small wins. Like when, say now, even here, getting back into a routine for the last 4 weeks in Dublin, it was just going on the piss. To be honest, wasn't training a lot. I fought 6 weeks ago. Didn't do much training. Afterwards, was enjoying my time with my family, and my friends, and I'm delighted I took that time to do it as well. But I knew getting here, okay, we have to build back up the bases. So it's simple things: getting up on time, saying I'm going to get up, get up at that time. And that's a tick. Stupid things. I started like saying, I'm going to get like a cold shower. I don't want to get a cold shower. I don't. But the discipline of it will just make you, win. And then that just, like I said again, that starts to leak into everything. The cold shower doesn't mean anything. Getting up early doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I get up at 7 o'clock and I just go on Instagram and look at reels. And it's like, but I'm up. I said I'd be up. I'm up. There's other mornings where I get up and I'm like we spoke briefly about yesterday, and it's like, oh, sure, I might as well do something productive. I'm awake. And I think that builds over time. It's like in the beginning, I remember feeling like when I started getting up earlier, for example, I stopped drinking as much as I was, as frequently as I was. And having time was a scary thing because there was no one really to put it. You're also, in a weird way, you're putting a wedge between yourself and a lot of the relationships you have, if that is what you're doing, which I believe most people, a lot of people in their 20s, especially in Ireland, that's what they're doing. They're drinking, they're partying, they're doing drugs, they're doing all that shit. So it's like once you put that wedge in it, it makes everyone uncomfortable. It makes you uncomfortable. But your best pal that you've been doing this for the last, since you're 18, he's a little bit like, well, what's going on? Are you okay? Is everything all right? And, it's there's plenty of uncomfortable feelings with this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how. I mean, that's what the sort of growing or the main theme of the podcast is, right? It's about navigating that middle journey where you haven't quite got to where you want to be yet. And I feel like in that instance, when you've got this older sort of circle, if you will, sort of just, I don't like to say holding you back, but in theory, they almost are, right? And it's like, when you're on that path and you've got people doubting you, I feel like a lot of people are in that middle ground where they haven't quite got to where they want to be yet. So it's like, is it just as simple as, like you said, just get the small wins done, try and block out that noise? Do you think there's also a big part of it is changing your environment as well? Because I know for a lot of people it won't be very easy, right? Because there is that comfort, they are your mates at the end of the day, but they're not supporting your goals. So is it as simple as, right, just get the small wins done and then maybe seek out someone who's maybe where you want to be, perhaps, whether it's a mentor? Obviously online coaching is one step as well. Do you think that's the way to go about it?
It is, but in saying that as well, like a lot of people don't have the money to invest in a mentor or a coach, or like I invested in some coaches, like whether it be for my own fitness journey or whether it's been actually more for my business, or whether it's been like just even like going to the likes of some of these like therapy or growth sessions, all this sort of stuff. It costs all the time. But nowadays, like, there is an infinite resource. Like Spotify now do free audiobooks. There's an infinite amount of podcasts, like, and you may not be like, my circle for a long time wasn't where I felt like I was going, and like a lot of my friends moved away nearly 2 years ago, and then it was bad enough when at least you had friends, and even if they were making poor decisions, at least you still had some support. And when that went, then it was like, now I don't have even the social outlet, or like I'm still not around a new group of people. Now I just have no one, it felt like. So I turned a lot into free resources of media. Any of my free time, I'd spend as much of it as possible either listening to an audiobook that was mentally, same thing again, a small win. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to sit down and listen to 9 hours of an audiobook today. It's like, I'm going to listen to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm going to, put on a podcast and something that's going to guide me in one sense or another. And like a lot of the stuff wasn't even to do with what I'm doing now. It was just someone else that's went through a similar journey, and then you start hearing people going, geez, that's exactly where I am, or I was there, or I'm going there, or like, do you know what I mean? And it doesn't always have to be obviously, as we said, we've made the investment, we've made the big push here. This isn't the first move. You don't just go, you know what, I'm quitting, I'm moving to Bali, that's the end of it. That's not what it's about. It's like there's so many small wins you can get well before that, that just accumulate and build up over time.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I think a lot of people see that sort of end journey and think, right, I've got to be there right now. But if it's just plugging away, I think I've referenced it on every episode, but it's so true, just that compounding effect of just these small wins over and over and over and over again, both with your sort of mental well-being as well, forming positive habits, but then also just, yeah, even if it's just getting up, just getting those small wins sorted, I think can just be so beneficial. I think in your instance as well, I'd love to hear about, because you mentioned you were fighting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what sort of pushed you to do that, and how's that journey been? Because I feel like that's a whole other spectrum of like ups and downs and that type of thing.
It's the same thing, man. It's just pressure. It's just putting the pressure on yourself and, believing in yourself as well again. Like, and even before that, even a fitness journey, I used to be, the skinny kid. I'm still not as buff as you over there, Harrison, but it's like, I used to always be the skinny kid. I remember when I first went and said, I'm going to start PT, and everyone was like, what? You? And then after a couple of years, like you said, okay, well, I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm going to eat, whatever. And you can still enjoy yourself and all that throughout it. But after a year, 2 years, then all of a sudden you are there. And it was the same thing with the fighting. I went back to the fighting purely for a hobby. I actually started doing 75 hard. I stopped drinking. And it's funny when you remove that. I always thought, I've no time. No wonder I was pissed Friday and Saturday and I was dying Sunday. It's like, that was my free time. It's like you had a couple of evenings and then all you want to do, just relax and just whatever. And so when I stopped drinking, it gave me a lot of time. I could focus on MMA. And for me, I just always am, like I mentioned there, the big thing for people is progressing your goal. I progressed my goal. And I started then doing some sparring and I said, oh, Jesus, yeah. And I kickboxed when I was younger and I was like, right, okay. I think I can do this. And then, you see some lads go up for fights, you're helping lads with fights, and you're like, all right, I can give this a bash. And then when it's hilarious. It's like as soon as your day's normal, nothing has changed. Just someone said, will you take this fight? And you go, yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, whoom, all this weight is on your shoulders now. And now you've that next step. There's something more to prove. You're going to be out there in your fucking underwear up against a guy that's been training to fight for Lord knows how long. And he is doing the same thing as you. He is pushing himself to that next level and you're doing the same thing. And especially your first couple of fights. Now, even my last fight there, the nerves were completely different. They were a lot less. I knew the process. I wasn't that worried. I've been training with good guys. I'm at a good level. And it's like kind of like, I'm in the beginning, there's this thing of like, am I good? Am I any good? Can I actually fight? You don't know what other gyms are like. You don't know what other dudes are like. But the process of fighting, it just always makes me better. Every fight, I gain more out of it. I prove something more to myself. And I always feel like I had this thing where it's like, you think you're someone. You think you can do something. You think you could, and it's not even about fighting, but it's just, you think you have the confidence to go and do X, Y, or Z. And it's like, okay, do it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, now there's a different pressure. Because now you're going, am I this person? Am I not this person? Can I do this? Can't I do this? And then you're looking up to certain people and everyone's doing things differently. Personality types are going to work in different ways. And it's a roller coaster of emotions beginning to end. And the fight's a great, I suppose, comparison to everything, because it's like you're saying there, the fight, it can go good or bad. And it's like people judge you on that fight. No one sits there and goes, this guy's been training for 2 years. He's been put in the last 12 weeks. No one sees early mornings, late nights, weight cuts, injuries.
Well, that's the biggest disconnect I have now with just the media and how people react to it. It's like these football matches as well. It's a similar thing. It's where you see so many spectators just having digs at football players, for example. Oh, this guy is awful.
That won't sound great in the audio.
Nice little slurp for my refreshment.
Freshman's over.
But yeah, but you see people sort of criticising, managers, players. It's like they're professional athletes. Like they're putting in the work day in, day out. They're trying their best, and yeah, it's just people just don't get it, and it does bug me a lot, especially with football as well, because I'd say I'm a Tottenham fan in football, but what annoys me is that I think the fans just never really get behind the players, or they'll have a dig at a player and get onto him. I remember once we had one player coming off the bench called Davinson Sanchez, and yeah, the fans were just booing the hell out of him before he came on. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be supporting the team, and I just think people just don't. And this is why it's like going back to before. It's like you don't listen to people who try and put you down or doubt you, because what are they doing? It's like you're not going to get, if someone saw you. We could go down the PT route, for example. If you met sort of Dorian Yates, I've had the pleasure of meeting him. Amazing guy. But if you introduced yourself to him, he's not going to go, oh, Declan, he shouldn't be doing that. He's not going to have a go at you. Of course he's not, because it's only people who are sort of below you or haven't done what you've done who are going to criticise, right? And I think that's so important for people to remember.
And they're not taking the risk, because I've took the risk, and I will continue to take the risk in every way, shape and form I possibly can, because as you're saying there, the more uncomfortable you make yourself, almost the bigger the reward it feels like at the end. Because even like my last fight I lost, it was a close fight, I fought well, but are you okay? Yeah. I done what I could do. I fought. I trained for this. I put it on the line. It didn't work out. My life the next day was the exact same as the day before. But people knew. Oh well, maybe now that's right. You're probably not ready, good enough for that level. You know what I mean? It's like, mate, what? What are you talking about? It's like you just can't. Even fighting is so evident as well, because you see these dudes walking out, and especially at homegrown shows, and it's like, and there's a guy from 20 minutes down the road, someone's from 3 hours away, and they're boo, and you're like, mate, this guy, as we just said, he's been training for years. He's after putting everything into this. He's risking it all. And it's like, and if you cannot even respect that enough to say, even there's guys that don't like, and I'm like, well, fair play to him, he's doing the thing. Do you know what I mean? He's doing what he needs to do. And it's like, but again, I believe once I see stuff like that within people, I'm like, mate, you're just not doing nothing. You're not pushing yourself. You're not challenging yourself in any way. Because I don't watch soccer. I don't like soccer. Kudos to anyone that is playing at a professional level. I've worked with some teams, and I see the training they're doing in strength and conditioning. Then there's people coming in, they're doing strength and conditioning, then they're going out and they're doing pitch work, and then they're playing a game that night, and then they're with a different team tomorrow, and then you're like, this is your whole life. They're putting everything. And then, like I said, there's some dude sat on the couch, crisps all over his belly.
Yeah.
That was a terrible performance. That's like, mate, like.
It's, it's ridiculous. But I think, just coming back to your point as well, at first when you did make that jump, right, it is a bit like, whoa, okay, there is this sort of pressure now, and there might be a bit of self-doubt there, right, because you've got to prove something. But over time, I think, as you've said, you do get more and more used to it. And I think that's why we should always just be exploring those moments that make us uncomfortable, because then once you become comfortable with the stuff you feared, I mean, the world's your oyster, really. I just think having that mindset of, I think if something scares you, you've got to run straight towards it, like 100%. I found the same thing with jiu-jitsu as well. First couple competitions, the nerves building up, you're like,
why am I doing this? Why am I here? Like,
but then you get used to it, right?
Yeah. And also I think for me, and my first fight or two, it was like, I remember putting so much into that first fight, and like, just thinking, oh, this is the be all, the end all, and putting everything on the line, it's real serious, and then it's like you win, and I felt almost worse winning than I did losing that last one, because it's like nothing really changes. I woke up the next day, I'm in my ma's house, and it's like I'm in work on Monday. It's like you've other things to look after. It's like everything just is normal. It's like, so what is the risk? What really is going to change? It's not.
Yeah, it's really strange. I remember I competed in the Entity Open. I think won my weight category and then won the absolute division. And I was, on the day, I was just, absolutely over the moon. I was like so ecstatic. But the week after, I really had a huge crash. And I was just like I was just not myself at all. And I was feeling it. And I'm like, what is going on here? And then I read on Reddit, and I was reading all these other jiu-jitsu fighters.
That's where you have to find everything. That's where you go. That's the new Google.
Right. Yeah, what would I do without Reddit? Literally, there's something for everything. It's amazing.
Sure is.
Literally anything. It's amazing. But they were, and I remember all these guys. They were telling me, well, not me personally, but they were on the thread. They were saying how it's actually you feel worse the week after when you win, and because I think when you lose, you're kind of just. I know you kind of just accept it, or I don't know. Of course, that there will be people who sort of dwell on it and stuff, but I think emotionally you're not experiencing that huge high and huge low. I guess I'm really interested to see the science behind it because that really interests me. And then I remember, so was on a huge high after that, had that crash, and then since then competed another time. Trying to remember the name of the tournament now, but had one match, got knocked out. It was like a 0-0, and then he swept me at the end or something. And I remember thinking at the time, like, okay, it's frustrating because, I didn't mind losing, but I think it was just one match, 5 minutes, and you kind of feel like...
Could have performed more.
Yeah, or just, could have had like 4 or 5 more matches, right? But then the next couple of weeks, you just get over it, really, and you're just like, okay, you see the wider vision. And it's interesting because I feel like for you and me, it's like... And I presume a lot of fighters, it is about yourself and it's about pushing it for yourself, right? But I wonder with that crash, because it's not external validation that we're looking for, I wonder if it obviously sort of still plays a part in your mind and how your emotions are sort of change, or how the emotions change after that.
Yeah, and the big thing then as well, then you get to like, why am I doing this? What's the point? You're giving up all this time. You're putting all your energy in. Your relationships are probably getting damaged. You're physically, you're probably in great shape, but you're probably doing damage. Like you said there, you have a little bit of time with no jiu-jitsu, and suddenly you sit down and you kind of go, fuck, I'm sore everywhere. And it's the same thing MMA. It's like, it's one thing or it's always something. And you kind of sit back and you go, what is the point? Because even when you win, it's not really a win. But then I think it's actually, again, broadening that horizon. And then now when I look back and I look at, like, I competed 4 times last year, or 4 times in the last year, say. And I'm like, I'm so happy I competed as many times as I did. I've done some grappling tournaments and stuff as well on top of that. And it's like, I'm glad I done it, even though in the moment, like sometimes you get too emotional. Sometimes you can't trust yourself with stuff like that. It's a difficult one because it feels like you're doing the wrong thing sometimes, but you're not. It's like you're just sacrificing things, and it's going to be difficult. And the thing I find as well, coaching and talking to people, and like, if you're really trying to change your lifestyle and you're really trying to go to another level, it's like, it's not going to be just seamless. There's going to be friction. And I think sometimes with competitions, especially in the early days, you're putting a lot of pressure on things, where now I don't care. That last fight I lost, that last fight I took on about 5 weeks' notice. I wasn't in a gym. I had one of my very good friends corner me, and I fought a very good guy from a very well-established gym. And I was like, there's no pressure here. There's no pressure here. What's the pressure? What happens? I lose an amateur kickboxing fight. It happened. What changed? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I pushed myself for them 5 weeks to train mentally, physically, prove I can do it again. And I want to continue to compete. And it's like, but I didn't have that weight on my shoulders. I didn't have all of that stress and bogged down. It's not like, oh, here's your participation trophy, just go and have fun and don't worry about that, because that's not what I'm about either. No. But it's like, there's also, you're not just going to steamroll everything. It's not just going to be a flat line or that way, No. There's going to be ups and downs, and like, that's just the way it is, and you have to be willing to take them. You can't hide from them either, because that's where I see people then, the mindset changes. They really fall out of love with it. I don't even want any glory for what I do. I don't. I just want to train. I want to train. If a fight comes up, I'll take a fight. And
you just want to improve yourself, right? You just want to keep on getting better every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, similar to BJJ. You know, it's like I know some people are aiming for different belt colors and that type of thing, but I think I read somewhere that as soon as people get to like blue belt, they just stop.
Stop, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like no, I just want to just keep on learning and learning and learning, and I think that's just for me at least it's kind of a nice way to just see life rather than sort of placing an emphasis on the results, like you just said, just the process and just falling in love with that and just yeah, you'll have ups and downs, but just sort of embracing it rather than just getting overwhelmed by it, I think.
Yeah, and even like that, I think if you set, sometimes you're too fixated on a goal or a timeline. Like I know I'm probably, here I've always just said, make sure you're setting goals and you're doing this and doing that and the other. It's a great way to have you that you're going to be at your best. But if you don't achieve that goal, it's like, oh, well, I said in 12 weeks I want to do this, I haven't. Okay, so what? Go all the way back? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, I'm after losing a fight, so I'm not going to train anymore and I'm not going to fight anymore because it's bullshit. Well, that doesn't make any sense either.
Well, I remember reading that when you're setting goals, this is sort of performing at a higher level. I remember reading how you want your goals to be about the 80% mark. So you want to make them sort of achievable, but you're only going to achieve about 80% of them, and 20%, 20 to 30% of goals you're actually never going to achieve, and you want to make them outside of what you're actually going to achieve, right? And I remember, I think his name was, I'll get his name, I'll post the book in the description as well because it's really, really good. But he was saying how as people aim for goals and stuff, if you're achieving 100% of your goals, then you're not aiming high enough. So it's actually, that's why failure should be something that we should seek rather than try and avoid.
There's a framework I always look at and use with anything that I'm doing, whether it be work related, whether it be training related, or just even just normal life related. And it's learn the skill, take the action, and then give it the time. And a lot of the time you think you're there and you just haven't done enough of it. It's not anything else. It's just that, like, I'm 25. I look at dudes that are 35 or they're in online coaching for 10 years. And of course I strive and I want to be there, or professional fighters. But it's like, then you're looking and you're like, this dude's doing double the output that I am. He's been doing double the output for 10 years. I'm not there yet. Even if I have acquired a lot of the skill and I'm taking the action, I just don't have that time and that experience. And like I said, moving away from it and cutting yourself short that you have less time is not going to solve that problem. And going in the other direction is not going to solve that problem. It's allowing yourself more time, and you may need to acquire new skills or, whatever it may be. But all in all, I always find that framework for me, it just allows me to kind of go, okay, well, do I need to learn a new skill? Do I need to take more action, or do I just need to give it more time? And sometimes, especially in the gym, I see people going, right, okay, I'm going to train 2 times a day and my calories are going to be 1,000 and I'm going to reach my goal and I'm going to do it in 6 weeks. And it's like, probably not. And you're probably going to hate the process and you're probably never going to want to do it again. Where if you do it that, it's a little bit more manageable, or a lot more manageable. And it's going to be something that you can, like you were saying there, jiu-jitsu, it's like, I don't care when I get a blue belt. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like, because I'm still going to be training. And if I get a blue belt, great, I'm going to be training. It doesn't matter. So I think that's a nice thing, and that's actually a practical thing you can apply to what you're doing. Is it just that you don't have the acquired skill, or is it just that you haven't really put enough time or action into that?
Yeah. I wonder for a lot of people then, if they're perhaps listening to this or whatever they're doing, I wonder if they're sort of thinking, right, I don't actually know what my goal is. I don't actually know what I want to aim for. I know some people get that feeling where they feel as though they've got more for them and they want to do something, but they might not have found their passion, or they might look at you and think, oh, yeah, okay, he wasn't good at school and he found his sport and that's wicked for him, but I don't know what my passion is, but I think I've got that drive to be able to succeed. I don't know if you had any thoughts on how they can sort of navigate that really, and how they can find, I guess, find their passion, but then also just find something which they can follow to get a bit more out of life, perhaps.
So I had a really good conversation with a friend of mine probably about 6 months ago when I was doing the online coach and I was going remote, all this sort of stuff, and he wanted to do something similar. Works a good job, everything is good, do you know what I mean? Everything was sorted, and he was like, "What do you think I should do? I don't really know where to go. I don't." And I was like, "Well, that's actually a great place to be, because you have a blank canvas and it's just about learning." It's like, so if I was to do that again, I'd look at, okay, well, what skill is going to translate into majority of things? What is going to open up the doors that if it is that I want to go down the route of fitness, fashion, restaurants, whatever you want to get into, it's like, well, what are you going to need? And I think some of the simple stuff like 100% communication with people, like the likes of sales and advertising, marketing, all them things are amazing things to have underneath you. Not only do they allow you an income, but you can also go fairly remote with a lot of them, which gives you time to try things. And I'd hear people say, "I don't really know what I want to do," and it's like, "But what are you doing?" It's like the same stuff. It's like, well, go and try something. Go and play paddle. Go and try jiu-jitsu. Go and join a five-a-side. Trial out rugby. It's like you've nothing to lose. It's like you've nothing to lose. And it's more so now for me. It's like, even here, it's like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I don't know if it's going to work. It's not that I don't care if it works. It's just that it's not going to be the be all or the end all. It's like another thing. There's a few times where I've been like, oh, this is it. This is where everything clicks, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I've spoke to a few people now, and I've been lucky enough that within personal training, you meet a lot of people that are, I suppose, great experience in business or life experience, 40s, 50s, relatively successful. And they can really help shine a different light in it, because it's like, I think in your early 20s, you have this thing where, oh, well, I'm just going to do this and then that's going to be that. And it's like, well, no, you're not, because you have your whole life to live on top of it. And I don't know if, like, I'm going to be doing online coaching forever. I'm going to be doing it probably into my 30s, but it's like, I don't really want to be that dude that's, 50s or 60s either. That's like, count your macros. But I'm learning skills that are, transferable into a lot of different things. And the same thing, if you're willing to learn anything. When I started learning, as I mentioned, I done a clothing thing. I done that purely out of interest. It was just something that I said, I'll throw my hat at this. There was no pressure. I was putting the money I was spending on alcohol into trialing this out, and nothing ever came of it. If anything, it just drained my my money. But at the end of it all, like, something did come out of it when I didn't realize. And then I started doing the online coaching. November, I started kind of playing around with a few different things, and I was like, I accelerated, because I was like, oh, I had all the skills from doing this thing 2 years ago that I thought were irrelevant and never going to play a part, that now do. So I think if someone's really lost and they don't know what they want to do, it's like the best thing you can do is get something that's going to be a proper skill that you can actually say, I can do this well, and then it can transfer into later on down the line when you meet. So, like, I've met you. If I wasn't doing jiu-jitsu, from meeting you, I'd be like, oh, I might throw my hand at this and see how it goes. And same thing with the gym or whatever. And that's what it's more so about. It's like,
Yeah, you can't just learn something from everything, right? Even if it's sort of a bad experience. It's like if you take sort of a dating world as well, people say, oh, but, this date was awful, and I don't know, this happened, and he didn't do this, and, she did this, red flag, whatever. But you're still learning something from the date, whether it's communication or your judgment or all of these things. You're always learning. And I think if you embrace everything with that mindset rather than placing expectations on it, I think that's the issue, is that people may place an expectation on meeting someone or doing this thing and hoping that it will bring them some sort of thing. Just go, just try it out, no expectations. And I think if you sort of let go of that, then, like you said, I don't think you have anything to lose, really.
no. And it's covering the basics. Like, for me now, it's like, I remember years ago when I was younger, it was like, oh, I'd love that watch, I'd love that car. No, I genuinely don't care, because it's like you can have any watch. And I remember hearing a couple of years ago, if you're not happy with a coffee, you won't be happy with a yacht. And I believe that genuinely translates into quite a lot of things. It's like people put their happiness into a material thing. It's like, and I know myself, I go, oh geez, I really want that pair of shoes, really want this. You go, you'd spend a couple of £100 on a pair of shoes, and then it's like, now I really want them pair of shoes. And it's like you're putting your happiness always somewhere else, where sometimes it's nice just to go like, and I know realistically I'm out of the loop that I was in, where for me, as I said, this was really one of the big things that I did want to achieve, because it's freedom for myself. So it may be, you know, there's obviously been years where I haven't felt like this, you know, where it's like, no, nothing's working, nothing's coming together, nothing's happening. But it's like the same thing again. Well, if I stop, what's going to happen? No one's rescuing you. People might give you a hand. People will help you out, but you have to do your part. And like what I've learned is been around good people. And even now, me, like, say, posting my content, having a conversation with you the other day, you're then like, do you know what? I'll give this guy a bit of time. I'll give him a bit of a platform. And a rising tide brings up all ships. Do you know what I mean? And everyone helps everyone. It's like, but you have to be willing to do it as well. Where I think there is something of like, oh, well, I'll just do this for 6 months and then bang. And it's like, no, that's not going to happen. And as I was saying earlier on, for me going into online coaching and then thinking that, oh, well, I see this guy and he's 5 coaches underneath him and 500 clients and he's fucking in Dubai with a Ferrari. And it's like, that's not going to happen in a year. Do you know what I mean? And it's being realistic then, okay, well, what do you really want and what do you really need? And I think being here really just shows me that on another level again, that you don't really, a lot of it's noise. A lot of it is just noise. It's just bullshit. It's stuff that people are putting on you. Like we spoke yesterday about a car. I drove my mother's Ford Fiesta 07 for probably a year and a half, and it was honestly, I couldn't have been happier with that car. And I knew a lot of people that were, you know, buying bigger cars or, you know, getting loans out for cars and all this sort of stuff. And it does depend on where they're at, but it was like, I never put my worth into that because it can be gone tomorrow as well, you know. And it's like, so what's the point? It's like, where the same thing, if you're actually looking after yourself, you're learning and you have a skill within you, that if the coaching, for whatever reason, AI takes over online coaching tomorrow, it's like, okay, I can zigzag, I can move, I can go into something else. So I know I went a little bit off there, but all in all, it's like, I think people just need to, all that stuff is just extra. It's all extra.
Yeah, and I think there's also balance as well, right? It's like having these goals, but then being content with what you have in the present. Often, I know it can. I know this has definitely happened to me, where you see where you want to be, and you're so focused on that you neglect the now and the present. And I think having that balance is also super key as well, especially when you're so driven, I think, and so being able to change your environment there, for sure.
With reverse engineering goals, I think it's very important as well. Like you're saying there, for me, that helped me a lot. Like, I want to be here in a year. Okay, well, what do you have to do to be there in a year? It's like, well, I have to do a piece of content every day. I have to look after the clients that I have. I have to make sure that I'm looking after myself. I have to make sure that I'm learning myself. I have to make sure that I'm not only doing the talking, but I'm doing the walking, and I'm learning, I'm growing. And okay, well, now, if I do that day in, day out, in a year, I'm going to be there. So I'm not going to worry about a year. I'm going to worry about today, the next step. What's the next move? One of the biggest things I've done for my productivity, and I picked this up doing the 75 hard, was pick 5 daily tasks. And in the beginning, these were some of the stuff I said earlier on. Get up early, cold shower, all these sort of things. But then all of a sudden these things become deep rooted in your routine. I don't need to put an emphasis now on waking up early because I just do it. I don't need to put an emphasis on a shower because I do it. Not a shower, cold shower. I showered every day before this. But yeah, a cold shower. And then you're just kind of putting these emphasis in these things. And then all of a sudden then these goals grow. And I just think then for myself now, like when I started PT and I had a small number of clients, and then it grew into a larger number of clients. Then I actually got part of a gym, and we started doing small groups and everything. Then what I used to have 8 people to look after me for a week. Now I have 8 people every 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, however many times a week, and it's like you grow with it. But if I was just given that, if I was just given, there's a gym, here's all the clients, it's like it would have just
Yeah, you haven't built up the routine, the habits, like you said. So I think that's the reason why it's so important to build up those habits and just fall in love with the process, because this is the foundation for what's to come later, right? And I think falling in love with that, like you're saying, I think will sort of set you up quite nicely. I know you mentioned sort of alcohol as well and how your relationship with that has changed. Something that I've thought about a lot myself. This idea of you have all these goals, habits, there's no time, but then you're spending that time and money on alcohol, right? I think it's not necessarily preaching to people don't drink alcohol, because everyone has their vice, right? And everyone has their thing. But I think there is something to be said for, okay, if you haven't got the time or money to spend on yourself, then, okay, are you drinking, and can that be sacrificed for something greater? I think.
I also think if you've never limited alcohol, even if you do have the money and you do find you have the time, I think if you've never went without it, I think it's just like we spoke yesterday. The first week, you're a little bit like, oh, what do I do? Saturday night, oh, everyone's going out. What is it? FOMO. And then you get through like a month of that, and you're like, why is everyone going out? It's like, you're just, and I love drinking. I wish I could say I didn't. I love drinking. And I said this to you yesterday. It's like, I love going out socially. I love having the crack. But I just know now as well that it's like, it's actually better when it's pulled back. It's like when you're overindulging in anything. Even food's the same. When I do a wake up, man, it's insane. The thing, like I go home and I'm like, yes, chicken and rice, yes, thank you so much. Where it's like when you're eating whatever you want, you're like, oh, this isn't great. You know what I mean? You're in a restaurant somewhere, nah, because you've been in a restaurant 2 times that week. It's like it's that thing of if you're overindulging in these things. Same thing if you're going out Friday and Saturday, and even without a productivity standpoint, I think just from an actual overall enjoyment sort of look on it, like you need to take a step back from things. Like, even training is the same. Like I had a chat to some people and they're like, I want to go to the gym 6 times a week. I'm like, you're going to hate it. You're going to absolutely hate it in a few weeks. I believe martial arts and stuff like that are different. The process is different. But going in and like into a gym with your headphones and like, I'm going to just lift this. It's like, there's only so much of it you can do. And even with martial arts, like I fell into the trap of like, okay, I'm going to do 6 sessions a week at one stage. And I was finding then I was really only doing 3 or 4 sessions, because the other 2 I was just going like, all right, bud, how are you? What's the story? And just arsing around for an hour, and then like, oh, I'm going to go. And like, you're not, and that's fine as well. If you are doing it for the social thing, that's fine. But the time would be better spent at home or meeting friends, or, do you know what I mean? Having the downtime. And it's the same with alcohol. You will obviously, but then the other thing with alcohol, and a friend of mine done 75 hard with me, and we both gave up alcohol, and we found we got very serious after a little while, that it was almost like I started to lose a part of myself that was more relaxed, more charismatic. I started just to be like, oh, whoa, and not judgy, but just like got a little bit weird. Like you almost got annoyed by people who weren't like doing the most they could, because it was like, I'm trying so hard here and you're doing nothing. And where I find that my balance is that like I kind of give myself now 2 nights out a month. I can drink 2 nights, any 2 nights. I can drink tonight if I want. I might after that Canggu traffic, but I can drink 2 nights if I want. But that allows me then that, okay, I can drink whenever I want. But then it's like when I go out, it's like someone's like, oh, can't be arsed. It's like I'd rather save it for something. And it just pushes it on to like the next week. And then all of a sudden you're going, oh, I went 3 weeks without drinking, and you've drank once this month. And there's weeks where you will, do you know what I mean? And but I just think allowing yourself there sometimes, and the same again, having just something to answer to, a little bit more discipline, a little bit more structure. For me, I'm very erratic. I'm very impulsive, and it's like that's what like makes me like really good at a lot of stuff, because like I will just become obsessed with this, like, and I'm all in, and like I'll get up in the morning and go, I'm just gonna go train for 2 hours. And be like, what? You know what I mean? And I'm gonna train this evening. But it can also hinder me to where I'm like, why are we doing this podcast? Let's just go. There's a bar down the road and we'll just get pissed and be great crack. And then it's like, oh, I didn't do anything I meant to do. And then that's a snowball.
Yeah, that's really interesting with the sort of impulsive nature, because I feel like we're quite similar in that regard. But for me, it's not with drinking. It's more like, I don't know, if I see something which I might like, for example, or you know, all those amazing like clothing stores you see in Hangi, I'll be like, oh, they do design T-shirts and they're oversized and they've got a cool design on the back. I've got to go in.
Six of them now.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. But then you can also use it to your advantage as well, which is cool. I think it's also interesting you mentioned as well, because I think when you do stop drinking, it does get easier to judge people as well. But one of the biggest lessons I learned was, okay, well, everyone's got their thing, and I think once you let go of the idea that everyone has to do things your way, I've said this before, it's like, look around you, like everyone's doing different things. Like some people are drinking, some people are smoking, some people, but everyone's got their way of living, right? And if it works for them, then so be it, I think. And I think just sort of letting go of that does enable you to, I think, take a step back. And I think all you can do is focus on yourself. Like you said, I think if you do like drinking, and if you're, in my opinion, if you're purposeful about it, I think that's the biggest one, because you've thought, all right, this is going to be a weekend where I treat myself because I've completed this thing and I've worked hard, and you're being purposeful. My observation is a lot of the time it's sort of habitual and it's just drinking for the sake of drinking. I think I've found that to be quite a disconnect often when sort of I'd hang around certain sort of social groups and it's like, okay, we're drinking for the sake of drinking. But I think it's just, for finding that balance and being honest. I think as long as you're honest within yourself and how you're using it, for me, I think then do whatever works for you, right?
But it's in everything, because like, say when I'd be personal training and now when I'm coaching, it's like I deal with some people and they're just extremely busy business people. And when you are chatting to them, it's like, it's not a matter of that, oh, I just love food and I can't stop eating, but it's a matter of like, it's convenient, it's easy. It's like, I'm after working for 13 hours. It's like, I don't care what it is. I just want to eat so I can go back to work. It's like, that's all I care about. Same thing with sleep and stuff like that. It's like, I don't care if I sleep 5 hours a night, because I can fit in 2-3 more hours work here. And that's as bad, like in his terms, the drinking. And it's just like, it's a routine, it's a habit, it's a coping mechanism, and it's something that people can deal with. And I think a lot of people struggle socially, especially if you don't, like there's a lot to do. Ireland, man, there's nothing to do. There is nothing to do. If you want to see your friends, you go to the pub. It's that simple. England is very much similar. But it's like, it gets to the stage where, like, I know myself, especially when I was younger, before I was really into training, I was doing some PTing, but it was more so cleaning showers. But we'd, you'd meet up on a Wednesday, it'd be like, yeah, we'll go to Dublin and get pissed. And it's like, fine, but it's like, after a while, but also I think it's an age thing. I do think people kind of grow out of it. You get a little bit more responsibility. But it's also like a correlation. It's like responsibility and maturity go hand in hand. Because if you're taking more responsibility, you have to mature, because you now have more on your plate. It's like, when I started running a gym back home, and it was probably the biggest stepping stone for me in a career, because I now have to be responsible for something, because you're now the face of the place as well. A lot of people know you in your local area. And it's not even that I didn't want to do it, because I did want to do it, you know what I mean? But it just gives you that extra push, that extra response. Same thing with moving here. Like I said, I've always dreamed about doing what I'm doing now, but I couldn't do it at home because I didn't have that responsibility on me. Where now it's like, I'm not wasting this opportunity. But then every time I do that, I find I grow a little bit more, and the people then that you're kind of connecting with are on similar, like yourself there, obviously saying you're not drinking, and it's like I'm now getting to the stage where I'm meeting people that I'm like, you're a friend that I could, you're a person I could be friends with, and where it's very easy to get stuck in a rut with things because you just don't have anything to do. And I think people are crying out for a social connection, a social outlet.
Yeah, and I feel like if you don't know the right places to look for, you're always going to head back to that just cozy, friendly environment, right? That's why I'm thinking back home. Obviously, I know running club's a big one. Lots of people hanging out with running clubs now on the Sundays. That's quite a good example. Obviously, paddle's growing quite a lot as well.
Here, paddle is huge, man. Everywhere you go.
Oh, it's so much fun.
I actually haven't played paddle. We have to do that.
Yeah,
we have to do that.
Yeah, that'll be the next thing we do for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, point being, I think there are
besides paddle circuits.
But yeah, point is that I think there are a lot of outlets that people can. I know there's an app called Meetup as well. We can meet like-minded people. I recommended it to one of my friends who I think he wanted to find more people with common interests, but was finding it quite difficult. He'd been isolated for quite a while, battling health issues and that type of thing. And yeah, he went to a meetup session. I really enjoyed it. Got to meet people who sort of also played, also were musicians and played guitar and that type of thing. And yeah, you feel more like a sense of belonging as well. And I think once you find your people, that's where, okay, you're no longer giving attention to these older habits, which may have served you in the past. But then I think once you grow out of that, you then want more meaningful connections, right? And it's like through BJJ, the connections I've made there is like people have a similar interest, which isn't centered around drinking, right? It's like people there, they've all got the same mindset. They all want to improve. Obviously, traveling's an amazing one as well, especially solo travelling, because in hostels you find everyone there is solo travelling as well. I think just finding people with common interests, that's something I think I'm very passionate about, because what I have seen, and again, I'm not saying it's everyone, but what I have seen is that often I think people, do that pub scenario because there's like that's all they know.
It's also like a scary thing. Like I know myself, I've always been relatively fit. I've always trained to a degree. I've always lifted or at least going to the gym 3 times a week. Do you know what I mean? And being relatively active, even if I was drinking and all this other stuff. But I think if you're not, like there's some guys that come to me in their mid-20s, 30s, 40s, they're like, I have never trained, ever. And then you're like, right, that's a different thing, because you're now no longer like, okay, I can go and play paddle, no problem. I can go to a run club, no problem. I can go, like even here coming to Bali MMA, I was like, well, I'm going to meet people. I know I am. But I think when you're not there, and it just keeps referring back to the same thing. It's like, start looking after yourself. Get yourself to a degree. And people have nothing to talk about. Because what do people do? They hate their jobs. A lot of people aren't extremely happy in their relationship, or they don't have a relationship. And it's one of these things, and so it's like, what do you do? It's like, well, we'll get pissed and we'll boo people. We'll boo fucking Manchester City in the telly. And it's like, okay, like that's fine. But it's the same thing. If you stay doing that, you're going to stay doing that. It's like where if you do make the uncomfortable decision to, do you know, I'm going to go on a walk every day, I'm going to get 10,000 steps, I'm going to go to the gym then, and even if it is just going in and I'm just going to use every machine once or whatever, it's like, okay, it's not the most optimal way to train, but you're going to be starting, you're going to be building into something. And I think sometimes even just making time for yourself. Like, I am very selfish with my time now. And a friend of mine, the guy who cornered me there for my last fight and stuff like that, he is amazing at saying no, where I'm a people pleaser. I'd say I wouldn't want someone to feel alone or bad out, so I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. And then it's like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do that. I have no interest in doing that. And it's like, oh, it's fine, it's only a couple of hours and I'll get on with it. Where now, I've now a lot more just to say like, no. Like I have, and this is the thing when you go freelance as well, it's your time. There's no boss, there's no 9 to 5. like I said, I can, if I want to go out tonight on a Wednesday, I can go out on Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? It won't be great tomorrow, but I can. It's not like, oh, if I don't turn up, no one's going to realize I don't turn up to the gym. And it's balancing all that as well. You have to kind of value your time and value, as you said there. It's not only a money thing, but it's like you only have so much time. You're only in your early 20s for so long. Like even now, I can't believe, I'm like, and in the last 2 years, I've really taken self-improvement very seriously, where like the years before that was kind of just hovering around it, where I've really kind of pushed myself and went on my own journey by myself. Like I'd do it if you're doing it, but if you're not doing it, I'm not doing it. Where lately which also is a good way to do it. It's good to have support from people to do it. I'm not saying don't do that, but when you do it for yourself, there's another element to it where you become a little bit more selfish with your time, not in a negative way, but in a way that like that doesn't really serve me. Like I'm not really too interested. Like you could have said to me, "Oh, Declan, we'll go up on Wednesday night. I'm free. Let's just go and we'll just get pissed." And it's like, nah, I'm not really interested. A couple of friends of mine are coming over this weekend, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to go to Finn's on Friday?" I'm like, "No, I actually don't, man." I was like, "I'll see you on Saturday morning, and we'll do a bit of training." And I'm happy to do that, and we'll have a better connection because it's like you go out, you meet someone. Me and a good friend of mine went out before I left Ireland, and we said, "Do you know what? We'll meet up, two of us. We'll have great crack." After 4 pints, man, like, what are you talking about? I don't remember. There's just music and there's noise and we'll go here, we'll go there. Nothing's happening. Where you meet up for coffee and you've an actually hour proper conversation, find out what's going on. Like I was leaving that, it's like, wait, how's he getting on with this? How's he getting on with that? It's like I never asked him because we were just
Yes.
like, oh, I love this song. It's like, well, who gives a fuck? That was the last time I'm probably going to see him for a year. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's what we spent our time doing.
Yeah, yeah. I've always I heard the saying from somewhere. It was like, if the answer isn't a hell yes, then it's a no, and that's been quite a good way, I think, to navigate decision making. Because naturally, I'm quite indecisive. Like, it's a blessing because I'll have, if something's come up on a weekend and I've got two different options, completely different, but then I'd rather have one option than two because then it's like, right, now I'm going to waste time thinking about the pros and cons of each one. I'd just much rather.
Gonna have to write a list now.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So what I'm trying to do, and again, it doesn't always happen, but I just try and make a decision quickly, and then usually it's going to be right, okay, it's not a hell yes, so I'm not going to do that. But I'll just try and make a decision quickly. And then if I think later, okay, do you know what? I went on this instead and it wasn't that great, fine. But I didn't waste time thinking about the decision, and I've also learned from it from next time. And like I said, it's something that I'm still working on now because it's definitely a trait that is still lingering there.
You definitely did touch on something interesting there with speed. Like, I think that is the best way to make a decision. Fast. It's like, okay, like, of course, get the information, understand what you're doing. But there's no point in dwelling on things. Like, I've had to make some investments into my business, some investments into, say, the coaching before I was even making money from the coaching. And it's like, right, well, what happens if I do this? And even if it doesn't work out, it's like, well, it doesn't work. It's like, so give the person the money. Let's see if it works. Do you know what I mean? They're promising X, Y, and Z. Their service is meant to help your service. And it's like, okay, right. Yes, let's do it, even if it is a risk. Because if I think about it for too long, you start getting emotions. You start going, oh, well, that money could be used for this. And it's like, yeah, but you're never going to grow like that. Like, I'd have people, and like with my coaching, and like, it's breaking down to about 50 quid a week, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, I'm not too sure. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's a commitment, I understand it's money, and it's an investment. But it's like, people spend 50 quid in the Chinese. And it's like, but they're not keeping track and tabs of all these things, where it's like, this is a positive investment into yourself. And what I've got from, the reason why I coach is because what I've got from it, it's completely and utterly reconstructed the path I was on for my life and everything, and just the mindset and everything got to do with it. So
Yeah, I think especially with sort of alcohol as well. Again, reframing that and thinking, okay, if I am spending, let's say, 30 quid a weekend, but how many times have you seen something listed for 30, 40 quid that you really want and you said no, right? I just think it's a way of reframing it. But yeah, look, this has been fantastic. I think we could talk all day, really.
4 more podcasts here.
It's way too much to even process. But yeah, this has been really, really cool. I think so much to learn in terms of like your mindset, especially, and I think just your takes on life and how we can navigate it, and especially I think those who are particularly maybe stuck or looking to make that jump and might feel quite overwhelmed by it all, I think they'll listen to your story and feel very motivated. So yeah, I think that's really cool. One way I like to finish these podcasts, it's always putting the guest on the spot, but if you just have one song that you'd like to recommend to the audience.
I've been waiting for this question my whole life. Well, more of an artist. I've recently completely changed what I listen to. So I used to be very heavy rap, rock, all this sort of stuff because of the gym and that. And now I'm fell in love with country. So I'm going to have to say Luke Combs. Now, song as a whole may be difficult. Just Luke Combs.
not his best.
I'm telling you, the guy doesn't have a bad song. The guy doesn't have a bad song. So Luke Combs, and listen to music that fucking relaxes you. Doesn't it? Yeah. You don't always need to listen to music about doing all this crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, that's true. I've got all my music's just like that all the time. So yeah, I think that will provide a nice little balance.
Yeah, you throwing a little bit of Luke Combs into the playlist and let me know how you get along, Harrison. Right. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll plug myself if you don't mind as well.
Yeah, where can people find you?
Instagram, TikTok, Declan_Thompson_coaching. And yeah, I'm sure we'll post up a lot of this stuff anyway, so hopefully people can see me. But yeah,
easy.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Thank you very much, boss. Appreciate it.
Hey, most welcome.